What is up, everybody? Welcome on into another stream. Welcome on into another show. Wait, what the hell? Oh, wait, echo. Welcome into another echo. What the hell? Adam's supposed to fix problems like that, man. Anyway, welcome into another stream, another show. It is Tuesday, January 21st. Can you believe it? January's almost over. I'm going to go out on a limb. I want to say something. You tell me. Is it true? Is it not true? I'm going to say this is the shortest feeling January in the history of Januaries. For me, that is what it is. What do you guys think? Do you think so? I think it's the shortest January ever. We have an amazing, I was about to say, and a wonderful show for you today, but we do have an amazing and a wonderful show for you today. There is nerdy things to go over. We've got a couple pieces of Star Wars news. I wanted to expand on and discuss the news about Padme being back in Ahsoka Season 2, potentially. What? We'll talk about that. Sean Levy's Star Wars movie shooting this year. What? Unbelievable. We'll talk about that. We have to talk about the report that multiple Watchers will be in the next two Avengers movies. I don't know. Is that a little too much? Do we really need those big old diaper wearing bald motherfuckers all over the Avengers films? We're going to get into it. And then the top story today, of course, what's on the thumbnail? Crazy rumors coming out from Daniel RPK. And there's actually been a lot of smoke and buzz around these rumors specifically. A new love interest for one Peter Parker in Spider-Man 4. We're going to get into that. Of course, all roads lead to Sydney Sweeney and Black Cat. Has there ever been a fan casting more on point? Has there ever been something that fans have wanted more? I got to be honest with you guys. It's going to be hard for Marvel to ever top RDJ Dr. Doom coming out on stage last year at San Diego Comic-Con. Like, even if you don't love that casting, you have to acknowledge, I don't know if they'll ever top that. That was a wild ass moment. We're all like, whoa, Dr. Doom for real? What? RDJ insanity. However, I think if this year they just bring Sydney Sweeney out as Black Cat, I think they might eclipse it. I think they might break the internet. I think that could be a bigger deal than even RDJ Dr. Doom coming out on stage. So we're going to break that down. We're going to go over all of that and more today. By the way, special thing we're going to do today. We got, like I said, we've got a couple stories and we're going to get into those stories. But I wanted to do something after we go over all of the news. And it's Warhammer related. Now, don't leave. Don't leave. Don't get mad. Come back. Everybody come back. Now, listen. Obviously, I am transitioning into a Warhammer fan and a Warhammer channel. I have been slowly converting members of this community into becoming Warhammer fans. It's no secret at this point. And here's what's really cool about it. I saw something last night that happened organically, and it made me really happy. A bunch of people in the Discord were talking about Warhammer. And they were discussing maybe one of the most fun and interesting parts of becoming a Warhammer fan. What army would I play? Okay? And so today we're going to watch, after we get through all of the news, Star Wars news, Marvel news, we're going to watch a 20-minute video where a guy explains all 20 factions that are in Warhammer. And we'll watch that video together. I'll give some commentary as well. And the whole point is, if you're interested in Warhammer, this is a good place to kind of get that first question started. Whatever army you gravitate towards, that ends up being kind of like part of your identity as a Warhammer fan. And it's frankly a very fun part of the fandom. And so we will do that later in the stream. And I think you guys will learn some things. And there are literally people within this community that are making this decision right now. Which army do I support the most? Which army would I build? Would I potentially play? What's my army? And we're going to talk about that later in the show. I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be really fun. So, lots to get into today when it comes to all of this nerdy news. And I got to be honest with you, I kind of want to just get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. And let's begin with some Star Wars news. We got 2 Star Wars news bits on the docket for today. Both of them are pretty crazy. I've got some feelings. I've got some opinions about all of this. So let's start with Amidala. Now, before we get into the Padme thing, man, I got to find this thing. Have you guys ever seen or watched the Robot Chicken where Vader or the Emperor is clowning on Vader? Let's see if we can find this. It is, oh, here we go. Oh man, we're gonna risk some copyright wrath here, because I think you guys, if you have never watched this, if you've never seen Robot Chicken, I don't know. This just popped up into my head, and I feel like now you will all have to watch it. So, because I just love how what he says, a palm and a dollar or whatever. He like makes fun of Padme. Check this out.
I threw the Senate at him. The whole Senate. True story.
Oh my God, that is so funny.
You made it come out of my nose.
Go for Papa Palpatine.
You have a collect call from
Darth Vader.
I gotta take this. Hold on. Vader, how's my favorite Sith? Whoa, 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 whoa. Just slow down. Huh? What do you mean they blew up the Death Star? Oh, who's they? What the hell is an aluminum falcon? Okay, so who's left? Are you me? Well, where are you? Wait a sec, you've been flying around for 2 weeks trying to get a signal? Oh, you must smell like feet wrapped in leathery burnt bacon. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought my Dark Lord of the Sith could protect a small thermal exhaust port that's only 2 meters wide. That thing wasn't even fully paid off yet. Do you have any idea what this is going to do to my credit? Hang on, I got another call. What? I'm very busy right now. Oh, well, where are they going? Huh, all right, just get me a turkey club. Coleslaw, I guess. I'm not even going to eat it. What are you getting? Yeah, see, I always order the wrong thing. No, I'll just stick with that. Okay, bye. Wait, what? Oh, cherry Coke. Thanks. Sorry about that. What? Oh, just rebuild it? Oh, that real f***ing original. And who's gonna give me a loan, jackhole? You? You got an ATM on that torso light bright? Now get your 7'2" asthmatic ass back here, or I'm gonna tell everyone what a whiny bitch you were about Padamame or Panda Bear or whatever the hell her name is. Oh, jeez, he's crying. Hey, come on, don't do that. Just look, I'm just dealing with a lot of crap right now. Death Star blown up by a bunch of teenagers. I didn't mean to snap.
Yeah.
Okay, just get back here. Okay, bye. I love you too.
Yeah, Pod Demande or whatever the fuck he called it. That shit is so funny. Okay, so that brings us into the first topic, the first bit of news today. Now, a couple of you guys shared this with me yesterday. This came from Christian Harloff, okay? So, Padme, fucking Natasha Portman, Natalie Portman. We're going to get this shit together. Natalie Portman in talks to return as Padme Amidala for Ahsoka Season 2. Okay, let's get into this and then I'll give you my thoughts. Natalie Portman's Queen Padme Amidala played a vital role in Star Wars prequel trilogy, but didn't live to witness the events of the New Hope after passing away while giving birth to twins Luke and Leia at the end of Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, one of the most memed on aspects of the prequels, just being honest with you, she died of sadness. It's pretty fucking lame. Padme's death is what ultimately pushed Anakin Skywalker to fully abandon the path of the Jedi and allow him to be consumed by the dark side of the Force. The Disney Plus Star Wars shows have allowed us to revisit earlier timelines in a galaxy far, far away. And though we have seen both Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen reprise their respective roles as Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin / Darth Vader, Padme has yet to make an appearance. She has showed up in the Clone Wars animated series and several Star Wars novels, but we haven't seen her in live action since Revenge of the Sith. Honestly, the character wasn't really required for the story of Obi-Wan series telling, and it's difficult to imagine a new spin-off prequel focusing on Padme. Yeah, of course. Even so, Portman has often said she would be open to reprising the role, and we're now hearing that she's actually in talks to return. After previously reporting that Ewan McGregor, Christian, and Ariana Greenblatt, who played the young Ahsoka in Season 1, are set to return in the second season of Ahsoka, Christian Harloff believes that Portman is also close to reaching a deal to reprise her role as the former ruler of Naboo. How Amidala would factor into the story obviously remains to be seen, but there's speculation that she could appear via the World Between Worlds, the realm where Ahsoka encountered her old Jedi Master, Anakin Skywalker, in the first season. She could be featured in a more conventional flashback, of course. Production on Ahsoka Season 2 is scheduled to get underway later this year. The cast of members, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so according to Christian Harloff, and I think it's important to really hone in on what Christian is saying, he is reporting that she is in talks. And if you watch what he said yesterday on the on his show, he said that Dave Filoni is really pushing for this. So Dave's really pushing for this. He really wants to get Padme into Ahsoka Season 2. Now, I should also mention that I saw big screen leaks and some other scoopers out there kind of throwing a little shade at Christian, saying that this was not true, saying that Portman's not going to be in the show. Okay? Now, let's just stop there for a second. So what's really going on here? Well, I will tell you that I believe Christian. I mean, I don't have any reason to not believe Christian. It's not like Christian has done a full career of breaking scoops and then he's got a bunch of shit wrong and we're all like, I don't know, bro. Like, when Christian says something like this, he's usually spot on. Now, clearly, he has been getting a lot of information about Ahsoka Season 2, okay? Because he's had a lot of different reports on it. I think I know... I don't know where he's getting the information for, but I trust the information, and I think that Christian is a dude that is connected. He's a connected guy. He's got a lot of, different sources, connections, people he's worked with throughout the years. He's interviewed Filoni. He's interviewed a lot of these different Star Wars people, right? So it's not so crazy to think that Christian could be getting information about Ahsoka Season 2, okay? So when the scoopers come out and say, oh, this isn't true, she's not in it, what does that mean? Does that mean she's not in it for now? Does that mean definitively that they know she won't actually sign? And Christian, although he is accurate in saying that Dave wants it, in that there are talks happening, these other scoopers are just saying she's not going to be in it. These are the moments, guys. These are the moments that I kind of put into the back of my mind, and I remember these moments often. Whenever there's conflicting reports, I try to remember them and then remember what actually happens, and then I try to understand where people got their information wrong. All of the people involved in the story that I'm talking about have been accurate in the past. And so as far as like what's actually going on, I couldn't really tell you. It's possible that she won't be in it, and maybe it's a Natalie Portman thing. Like maybe she wants too much money. Maybe she, has weird issues with the script story, wants a pass on it or something. Who knows for sure? Don't really know. Maybe it's Disney. They don't want to pay her the money. Who knows? Okay, but let's now talk about her actually being in the show. And, what could this be? I think the report we just read on comicbook.com is accurate. Like, we're all probably thinking World Between Worlds. Something with the cosmic side of the Force. I have seen some fans speculate that she could be the mother. And the reason I think people are speculating this is because there are some rumors that Anakin is going to have a pretty significant role in Season 2 of Ahsoka. And if Anakin is truly a more active player, and the plot on Peridia does actually involve them fighting against Abeloth, then sure, I could see Abeloth presenting herself as Padme or sending a vision of Padme to Anakin, who might also be the father. And we have to remember that Abeloth is so powerful in Legends that she basically scares the Celestials off. She scares the ones. So I don't want to get too deep and nerdy, but like the father, the son, and the daughter, they all leave and they go to Mortis because Abeloth is a problem, right? And so we could be getting some absolutely wild cosmic level shit going on with Star Wars. It could, of course, just be a flashback. It could be a clean flashback, right? And to the point of Clone Wars and, you know, Padme being in Clone Wars, there's potential for Padme and Ahsoka to actually have had experiences. They have had experiences in the Clone Wars. Maybe we see some of that in a flashback or via a World Between Worlds vision. Okay? I think this is probably the most accurate thing to say. It really seems like Dave Filoni is swinging for the fences when it comes to Ahsoka Season 2. And Star Wars right now is kind of a mess. Things are divided. The fandom is divided. And even with this Padme news, I saw a lot of people, prominent Star Wars influencers, that were kind of taking the attitude of like, oh, I remember Padme, you know, and basically throwing a little dirt on this idea, saying that Dave is just a nostalgia bait, member berry bait kind of a guy. That speaks more to the divided nature of the fandom. Ultimately, I guess we'll have to see if this will connect or drive interest and excitement within the Star Wars fandom. But I think if you just look at season 1 and you look at what Dave did with Anakin, because, yeah, you can complain about the overall pacing of the show. You could complain about the ending. You could complain about the depiction of Thrawn. There's a lot of stuff that you could complain about and nitpick all the way down. But one thing I think you have to give credit for, if you're being fair, is Dave swung for the fucking fences, dude. He swung for the fences. And for me, as a Star Wars fan, he's the only guy that gets it. And he's able to do two things simultaneously. He's able to honor the past, honor the legacy, and yet drive it forward. Do more interesting things. And, you know, basically the whole idea of Abeloth is fascinating to me because it is like a new flavor of Star Wars. I mean, sure, it's all over Legends and there's like a big, you know, thing that happens there. But for modern Star Wars and for more normie versions of Star Wars, this would be such a wild swing. And so I think Star Wars does need to take this swing. And it's clear to me from this story that Dave is swinging again. And Dave is maybe one of the only guys over there that is truly passionate and motivated to do whatever it takes to blow the fans away. Right? So I don't know if Portman will be in this show. I don't know that it will even connect with fans if she is. But I respect Dave swinging for the fences. Ahsoka is one of the only things I am excited about as a Star Wars fan. And personally, hell yeah, I would love to see Natalie Portman back in the role of Padme in Ahsoka Season 2, even if it's just a flashback. If it gets really crazy, I'm down too. So that's the story out there. I just kind of wanted to clarify it, give you some insight, and kind of give you my take on it. Natalie Portman potentially returning to the role of Padme Amidala in Ahsoka Season 2. What are your thoughts on this? What do you think? Is it a good idea? Let me know. Let me know. What do you guys think? Is it dope? Do you care? Like, man, I'll tell you, like, so we've been, we've been doing the Clips channel, right? And I'm kind of trying to grow and build the Clips channel. And I just got to say, some of the Star Wars clips that I thought would do well over there have not done well. Comparatively. Now it's a very small channel, and so like honestly anything over 1,000 views is good on that channel, but like you look at some of the Marvel stuff we've done, We've got like a lot of videos over 10K. We've got videos towards 16K. The Star Wars, even the clips, like I did a clip about Balin's skull being recast, and it like just didn't pop at all. And I wonder how much of this stuff that Christian is covering, is it popping? I mean, it's bad right now, guys. You know what I mean? John Kerr, 3. Thank you for 7 months on Prime. Says, I'm still wishing for an auto Prime sub. Also, Felicia Hardy was one of my first crushes, other than Kimberly, the Pink Power Ranger. Oh, nice. Yeah, those are both good. Those are both real good. Let's see here. Somebody says, I respect the effort. I'm cautiously optimistic. Besides, more Padme never hurt. That's true. So many cool characters in Star Wars. Why Amidala? I think Dave is doing something story-wise. I think that's why he wants to do Padme. Probably has to do with Anakin. I think if I'm Natalie, I would want to do this after the garbage fire that was Love and Thunder. Yeah, I don't know, right? It's hard to say. I mean, think about this. I think part of the issue that Natalie had with Star Wars was the fan reaction and the critic reaction to it. There are rumors that like her and George beefed and stuff like that too behind the scenes. But if you look at Love and Thunder, that was like her first big return to fandom, and I just don't think it went well. You know, like the movie itself is goobly glob, but also the concept of like her replacing Thor is, I don't know, it's just so derivative and silly. What Jason Aaron did in the comic run was interesting, and then they do such a pale in comparison, paint by numbers version of it in Love and Thunder. It was like really cringy. And I don't know how aware she is of any of that, right? Like maybe, I guess what I'm saying is there could be a reluctance to return to fandom IP in general if you're Natalie Portman. Like you might just be like, I don't want no part of that Star Wars stuff. I don't want no part of that Marvel stuff. Because I think that was part of the reason why she never came back at all for anything. So, because I don't know. I don't want to get lost in the sauce here, but like, it is interesting to think about, like, would she want to come back more after Love and Thunder? Or did Love and Thunder become a thing that sort of reinforced some of her negative impressions she had about fandom? You know? I don't know. Yeah. Brand and fandom both have done numbers to themselves. Fans are not innocent, nor is the studio. Yeah, I mean, look, I kind of agree with that, but here's my ultimate issue. The studio has to be the adult in the room. The fandom is under they have zero responsibility to act in any sort of way. Like, you just have to understand that. Like, anytime you are creating a product that already has an existing fan base, right? I mean, you bought the thing for $4 billion. Like the whole thing with Star Wars, it drives me crazy because you bought it for $4 billion knowing it had a lot of appeal. And so why would you then take a thing that's according to you worth $4 billion and try to like change it up a lot, right? And on top of that, if that fandom that made the thing into the $4 billion asset, if that fandom is giving you feedback that it doesn't like the direction of what you're doing, like, who are you to disagree with them? And I think if you take it a step further and you try to like educate or correct them, then you're just totally stepping out of your lane. Now you're trying to be like mom and dad to a fandom. It's just like, I think, and this is like a lot of the cultural stuff, like around Kathleen Kennedy as the president of Lucasfilm. It's just a really bad strategy, you know? And it's like Marvel has learned this lesson, I think, and I think they're changing things. Star Wars, it's like, I don't know. I really don't know. Gilroy also did interviews saying he never watched the OG films and they didn't interest him. Well, it's actually even beyond that. Gilroy has said he actively does not like Star Wars and that he never did. Right? Like, so he said that, you know? And I think Andor could have worked in spite of that. I think for a lot of people, Andor still does work, But those people aren't, in my opinion, are not actually hardcore Star Wars fans. They're more fans of brand, franchise, IP in general. They have a vague sense of appreciation for Star Wars, and therefore, when something like Andor happens, they appreciate it for its craftsmanship, and they appreciate it comparatively to a lot of the goobly glob that comes out of big studio IP. That I understand, and that's the same thing with Penguin. Like a lot of people, especially people like myself that cover this stuff or that are active in this, community or space. Let's just be real. A lot of the stuff that comes out is crap. Across the board. It's hard to make good shit. And so you get a fatigue for a lot of the same patterns that the goobly glob appears as. Right? But yeah, you've heard me talk about this before. Yeah. I think this is huge for Star Wars. Dave knows these characters and all central to the great Star Wars story. Give him Luke next. Yeah, I think giving him Luke would be very, very good. That would be a good idea. And I hope that Luke is a part of Mando and Grogu. It's weird. We've heard some really weird rumors about Mandalorian and Grogu recently. I haven't really touched on them too much. But like Jeff Snyder and John Roca have been talking about this a little bit. And apparently there is some beef between Jon Favreau and Kathleen Kennedy, which is a long-standing rumor. We've talked about it many different times throughout the years, but apparently there's validity to that. And apparently there were a lot of parts of this shoot where John was not actually on set. Now, I heard that this was because he was sick. He had the Rona. But the way some of these other people are sort of reporting it or couching it is like they're suggesting that there's more to it, that there's more going on. You know what I mean? Yeah. Josh, I don't think you're no authority to define who and who isn't a hardcore Star Wars fan. I'm sorry. Hey, I totally get it. Maybe because I've tried to make this point many different times. It could be the way I'm explaining it, because I'm not suggesting that the experience of being a hardcore Star Wars fan is impossible if you like Andor, right? But what I am saying, and, maybe I just have to find the right way to say this, or maybe it just doesn't fucking matter and people are just going to be mad when I say this kind of stuff either way. But there is a actual feeling and template and model that all of the Star Wars movies, other than like even the sequel stuff, I gotta be honest, tries to mimic this model. But there is a model that to me creates what I call feeling like Star Wars, which could be considered this like esoteric idea, right? Like, what does that even mean, feeling like Star Wars? But I would argue I could actually scientifically break that shit down. That feeling like when you go into a movie theater, you experience feelings and emotions. The moving images, the music, the editing, the cut, the frame, all of these things work together to actually elicit emotion. That's why we like movies. It elicits emotion. If you go see a horror movie, there's one primary emotion that takes over that entire room, and it's like fear or anxiety. If you go watch a thriller, it's the same kind of idea. There's certain elements put together that add up to a generalized feeling that the audience has. Now, film is a subjective experience insofar as how your life experiences add up to your perception or interpretation of the things that are in the movie. That's like completely you. That's a personal thing. But emotions, raw emotions, I actually think are pretty universal, for a lot of people. And the elements that come together to make the OT Star Wars and the prequels are mostly absent from how Gilroy puts Andor together. This has to do with dialogue choices, story choices, music choices, all sorts of choices. It's more like an Andy Sorkin project that happens to take place in the Star Wars universe, right? But you know what? Honestly, man, like, I get so tired of making this point. And so I think I'm going to stop doing that. Because, like, at the end of the day, people either get what I'm saying or they don't. I don't think I'm winning hearts and minds here. And the reality is, it kind of doesn't matter because Andor was not a highly watched show. Andor cost like $700 million, and they had to put that shit on Hulu and ABC just to boost its own viewership numbers to justify the expenditure of the next season. Now, I hope season 2 is good, mostly because I hope it's different than season 1. But ultimately, it won't matter. Shit is cooked, and unless it strikes a chord with the people that I'm describing, the people that actually enjoy the culmination of factors that create the feeling that is a Star Wars thing, it will not succeed. Do you see what I mean? And even if you don't, who gives a shit? All right, let's move on to some more really exciting Star Wars news. This shit is so cool. I can't believe Star Wars is so great these days. Let's talk about Sean Levy's Star Wars movie. What the hell is going on at Lucasfilm? Okay, check this out. Ready? Sean Levy's Star Wars movie reportedly to begin filming in the UK this year? What? We got to read this. What the hell is going on? Several exciting Star Wars movies are currently in development, including The Mandalorian and Grogu, set to premiere May 22nd, 2026, with Jon Favreau directing. Other upcoming feature films, Charmaine, Obed, Chinoy, Dave Filoni, James Mangold, some of which are in pre-production or development. In addition, movies like Lando, starring Donald Glover, and Rogue Squadron, directed by Patty Jenkins, are also planned, though their status remains uncertain. There is also an untitled film by Sean Levy, but little is known about its current development. In November of 2022, it was reported that Sean Levy was in talks to direct a Star Wars film after his work on Deadpool and Wolverine and Stranger Things. However, in September 2023, Levy revealed that while development on the project had begun, it was delayed to the 2023 Writers Guild strike. Following the release of Deadpool and Wolverine, Levy confirmed that he is actively working on a movie, so this development is not at all surprising. Now, industry insider Daniel Richtman shared on his Patreon account that Levy's film might begin filming this year in the UK. Initially, the movie was planned to include Daisy Ridley reprising her role as an older Rey Skywalker, though details on her involvement have likely changed since then. This is not the first project to be rumored to have Ridley's involvement. The character is certainly being teased with a great future in the franchise, but the rumors are everything but positive, with the latest scoop claiming that her movie is on hold for the time being. The last update of the project was back in October when Stephen Knight stepped down as the writer of Star Wars New Jedi Order, and the movie was supposed to focus on Rey rebuilding the Jedi Order based on an ancient Jedi text. Read them, have you? Page turners, they were not. Okay, so let's talk about this. According to Daniel RPK, Sean Levy's Star Wars movie very likely to film this year. Wow. Now, this comes in the context of a ton of Rey movie stuff. I've been talking about this for weeks, months, maybe years. Been trying to warn you. You want to know what Kathleen Kennedy's plan is? 6 more Rey movies. 6 of them. Holy shit. What? 6 Rey movies. Now, it is true that the current Rey movie with Charmaine, Obed Chinoy, and Steve Knight was writing it. First, it was Damon Lindelof was writing it. That movie appears to be, I don't want to say completely falling apart, but there's no way that movie's going to be ready for 2027. Well, probably definitely won't be ready for 2026 as well, right? So the current plan right now, or what the plan was to have 2 Star Wars movies in 2026 and another Star Wars movie in 2027. And I think, just given all the news and the buzz about all these different projects, like, bro, they're cooking up a lot of movies. They want to get Star Wars back into the theaters, okay? Now hang on, because I'm going to sneeze. Okay. So, got a ton of Rey movies, Star Wars trying to get back into the theaters. Charmin, Obed Chinoy, and Steve Knight can't quite get it together, but they already announced Daisy Ridley coming back. Jeff Snyder's talking about how she might have multiple projects, signing massive deals. You know, we had an article come out in the trade saying she's the most valuable asset in the Star Wars cinematic universe. What are they smoking over here? Okay, now, I want to give some credit, and I want to try to be a little bit positive about this, okay? If I have to choose between Charmin Obed Chinoy, Rey movie, and Sean Levy, Rey movie, it's Sean Levy all day. It's not even close. I mean, Charmin Obed Chinoy is not qualified to make this movie. On top of that, the story for this movie seems to be half-baked at best. You had Damon Lindelof come in with a pitch, and it was going to be a much older Rey. Then you have him quietly fired, and Steve Knight gets brought in, and they announce that Daisy Ridley's coming back to the role of Rey at Star Wars Celebration before they even have a script. So the story for this thing is half-baked. Charmin's not qualified. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? Now, Sean Levy, not only is he qualified, the resume is incredible. Just coming off Deadpool and Wolverine, and you know Kathleen Kennedy loves to take a budgeting career, someone on the rise, and make them do Star Wars so that it ends all of the velocity of their career and makes them the laughingstock of the entire community. So she probably wants to do that with Sean Levy. And her producer instincts are correct here, because Sean Levy, he does have an incredible fan base. I think people are very excited about Deadpool and Wolverine. And Levy's co-writer that he did the Adam Project with, that's the guy that's coming over to help him with this movie. So, the idea of Levy and the guy that wrote the Adam Project collaborating on a Star Wars movie is really cool. It could inject a lot of hopefulness in there. I think Levy has a great eye for action sequences and bombast, so it could be really entertaining and fun. The only problem, of course, is that you still have Rey at the center of this thing, which I judge to be a mistake. I judge this to be a weird, egotistical doubling down on the sequel trilogy, which, to be fair, the content of the sequel trilogy looks like fucking Citizen Kane compared to what they've put out on Disney Plus in the subsequent years. So I get that. But it's still, I think, a big old dumb decision. It's not smart, stupid. You want to bank on Rey Skywalker? Holy shit. So, I find myself to be conflicted about this news. Again, it is great that it won't be Charmin. I hope that movie never happens. No offense to her. Sean Levy could actually do this. Levy could actually introduce a lot of elements to Star Wars that I think we need. He's competent. I love the co-writer. It's just that it's still going to be Rey. Now, to be fair, Rey's status in this movie is still a rumor. I think the way that Daniel reported it was like the status of her character in the film could be changing. That likely just means she's no longer older. She's going to be younger. And they might be taking some of the beats from Charmin's film or even Steve Knight's ideas and putting them into Levy's film, because it seems like they really want to reestablish Rey to people. That seems to be top priority. Right? So, I don't know, guys. I mean, I guess this is good news, because if you're rooting for Star Wars, this is a better strategy for them than doing the Charmin thing, etc., etc. But I'm still just like blown away that they actually think Rey is a character they can build off of and is this like really valuable asset and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. It's a wild situation to me. I feel like that's really dumb. But that's the news. Sean Levy's Star Wars movie to possibly film this year. And if it does film this year, we will get all sorts of leaks and rumors about it. If it does film this year, it'll likely be the movie that is either coming out in like Christmas time of 2026 which would kind of give it like a full 2-year production schedule, or it's a 2027 Star Wars movie, which again is good. Like, that's good. I just happen to think this is a terrible idea if it's Rey. So there you go. That's the report. What do you think of it? Let me know your thoughts about more Sean Levy Star Wars, and potentially Sean Levy Star Wars with Rey. What are your thoughts? What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? What's the deal? What do you think? Majan says, just a thought, why not make a $40K theme park for adults to go in when rides are dope as fuck, make it bigger than Disney parks? I think we're a couple of years too soon on that, but if the Cavill stuff pops off, you could absolutely see that, and I would love it. I would love it, because Warhammer is the best IP by a long shot out of all these IPs, and you know it, I know it, everybody knows it. Rossi says, I'd rather get another kidney stone than a Rey movie. Holy... My God. Hope you're feeling better, by the way. Hope you're feeling better. Levy better than the one peeps who want to make a Rey movie. What? I mean, yes, but also what? Sean good. Sean plus KK equal dumpster fire. Yeah, it's not great, huh? Why the fuck are we still making this bitch-ass Lando movie? Who the fuck are these dumb decisions? Yeah, I agree. And also, I thought the Lando movie was a show now or something. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know, man. Who knows? Who knows about this stuff? Any news on the MTG show / movie? No, not that I've seen. Not that I've seen. Aren't Levy movies kind of mid? What? I don't know, man. I like his movies a lot. I thought the Adam Project was incredible. I think the Real Steel movies are like really fun, dude. And Deadpool Wolverine is like, I mean, let's be real. Deadpool Wolverine, really fun movie. Not his best, not Marvel's best. But I mean, that movie was kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. It has 5 writers on it. It's a little bit of a hack job. Yeah. But I will also say that if Deadpool Wolverine represents the low tier of Sean Levy films, it's still fucking incredible, dude. You kidding me? Free Guy is fun. Yeah, Free Guy's great. Like, Levy's really good. And I think Sean honestly could do whatever he wants. Like, I know for sure that Marvel's trying to get him to do a bunch of stuff. And when you do Deadpool Wolverine and it's like that big, like, you can do whatever you want. So it's interesting that Levy wants to do Star Wars, and maybe he understands that fandom, and maybe just like he kind of repaired Marvel's image, like it's possible he comes in and helps to repair Star Wars' image as well. I wonder if that's a part of the calculus. I had a member chat. I will go over all the chats later on in the stream. Glover will be as old as Billy D by the time... Yeah. True. Comics things. I did see that. I think that's pretty cool. The Red Hulk thing. I do think that's pretty cool. Can I just say one thing about Captain America Brave New World? Because I actually recorded a video earlier today. Should come out tomorrow. By the way, huge video today about Hugh Jackman, Wolverine, some of the stories that they could adapt with him. I wanted that video out yesterday. It wasn't ready. Put a little extra polish on it. It's going to be dope today. But can I say one thing about Brave New World? I was recording a video this morning. The whole premise of the video was 5 rumors and leaks that actually have me really hyped up for Brave New World. But I found that while I was explaining this, I had to explain why I wasn't that excited for just Sam Wilson Cap, right? Because I was kind of like, the whole point of the video is kind of like, yeah, the interest in this movie is like kind of low. But there are 5 things that I know are going to be in it that I'm actually hyped about. And as I was recording the video earlier today, I said something in the video and it made me really think. Like right now, The movie's being marketed heavily using Harrison Ford as Red Hulk, okay? Can you imagine what the buzz for this movie would be like if they didn't have Harrison fucking Ford as the Red Hulk in it? Like, I'm not trying to be rude, but just consider that they have Harrison Ford as Red Hulk and the buzz is still where it is at. Could you imagine if they didn't have that, where the buzz would be? I think that kind of says something. Joshua says, typing in a super chat is hard because it has a mind of its own. Probably why some of them don't make sense. Also, you missed mine earlier. For sure, brother. I'm going to go over all the chats. Like, I guess what I'll say is I want to keep the thing flowing. I don't want to go back through and scrub through and read super chats. It's not good content. But later on in the show, I'll just go over all the super chats. The ones that I catch in the moment like this, I will skip when I'm going over them later. So that's a better way to just get caught up on everything. That's the best I can do. Honcho Jack says, what do you think if we get new X-Force films with Deadpool and Wolverine in the reboot and have X-Men doing their own thing in the MCU? Yeah, that could work. But you could do that with just the Exiles. Maybe have all of those characters as well. Yeah, but you could just do X-Force and then have the X-Men doing their thing. Totally. Optimus Prime Rib says, Levy know about nice pull baloney riff. The more I've read about, the more disheartened I've got with Reynolds. Yeah, I mean, look, that whole situation, I mean, it's a whole big weird thing. I think Reynolds absolutely did that shit. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, does that make Ryan Reynolds a bad guy? No. Does it make him kind of a dick? Yeah. Do I understand because it's his wife? Yeah. Does his wife seem super fucking sus? Yeah. Is it really in my business? No. Am I going to talk about it just because I have a microphone and a camera and I'm on the internet? I guess a little bit. The Baldoni thing, like, yeah, I really do think they did that shit on purpose. I think that's why Baloney is suing. And I think if Discovery happened, we might learn that it was 100% intentionally done. And you're going to have to decide for yourself how you feel about that. Do you think that's fucked up? I don't really care. You know what I mean? Like, I'll just be honest. Like, I don't really care. But I don't worship at the altar of Ryan Reynolds either way. I think Deadpool's fun. I think Ryan's a very smart business guy. I guess I would generally say I like him. But I'm not, like, he's not my dad. You know? Like, I don't know. Does that make sense? Like, I don't care. He's just a dude, man. He's just a dude. Josh, are we getting an Asajj Ventress TV show? No. Did I enjoy the UFC? I did. Yeah, man, I did. It's funny, and he's being a baby back beach. Yeah, it is funny. I don't know. I guess he's being a baby back beach. Shit. Brief rundown of what happened? Nah. The whole thing sounds so ridiculous. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. It is pretty ridiculous, but 'tis what it is. Okay, a couple of things I want to talk about. We got some Marvel news to get into, and then we're getting into that Warhammer part of the show, baby. Oh, I'm so excited. For the record, after these next couple Marvel stories, I'm going to catch up on all the super chats because everybody don't get real mad. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to watch a 20-minute video which breaks down all 20 of the factions in Warhammer. If you're a Warhammer fan, or maybe just Warhammer curious, one of the most fun parts of becoming a Warhammer fan has to do with discovering what army you would play. Okay, at the end of the day, it is a tabletop game. You know, a lot of people play the tabletop game that are in the fandom. But even if you don't play the game, you usually select an army that you would play, that you would build, and that you like the most. And then you seek out the lore for that army over like everything else. So it's kind of a way to form your identity as a Warhammer fan. So we're going to do that later in the stream. It's going to be really cool. Okay, let's first now, then later, always and forever. Let's look at this story. I gotta know what you guys think about this, okay? So this is coming out from Daniel RPK, and he said multiple Watchers will reportedly appear in Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. And if you don't know who the Watchers are, they are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I believe at the end of they're in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And you can kind of see what they look like in live action. They look fucking terrible. They're in the famous post-credit scene with Stan Lee. And he's doing like a conversation with them. But also, of course, from the What If show. Uatu the Watcher, main character of What If. In season 3, there are evil versions of the Watcher, or like the Watchers are having arguments and stuff like that. They're these big, bald, diaper-wearing, cape-wearing cosmic entities. And according to Daniel, there's going to be multiple Watchers in Doomsday and Secret Wars. So I don't know how you guys feel about this, but this was something I saw and I was like, that's a little too much. And that might seem crazy because I'm usually the guy that's like, oh, this is dope. Do it all. And I'm not necessarily concerned with things being too much for the casual audiences. But a bunch of Watchers being in these movies, it's just too fucking much for me, dude. Like, I don't think we need, on top of RDJ Doctor Doom, on top of potentially the Beyonder, on top of the mutants and X-Men and all the other cameos and characters, on top of potentially King Thanos, on top of potentially dark variants of the OG Avengers that are multiversal variants like Hydra Cap, Maestro Hulk, etc. I don't think we also need the Watchers. Now, maybe they will just be seen in some capacity in the background to show the scope of what is going on. Like, there's some shots at the end of Jonathan Hickman's Time Runs Out story before we get into Secret Wars that have, like, all these bodies of the celestial beings, right? And they're all just dead because the Beyonders killed them all. And I wonder if the Beyonders will be used in some capacity like that. But, brother, I do not need Jeffrey Wright's voice and some big bald diaper head looking motherfucker like in the background or talking to Reed Richards and RDJ Doctor Doom about this stuff. I don't want it. So I'm personally like a little concerned, man. It just feels like it's a little too much, man. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe there's a way that they can make this work, but I don't love this shit. This ain't it to me. What do you guys think of this though? Like, is there a good reason that they need to be in here? Like, we don't really need that, in my opinion. Like, let me just try to explain it a little bit further. Josh hates bald people. I don't hate bald people. I just don't like looking at them. You know what I mean? I'm just fucking around. I might go bald someday. Everybody relax. Here's the thing. The Watcher in comics used to be really cool because, like, you'd just be reading a Marvel book and then all of a sudden Uatu is just there watching what's going down. And it used to be when you saw that shit, you'd be like, oh, damn, shit's about to go down. The Watcher's here? Holy. But this is one of those things from comics that Marvel kind of fucked up because due to the What If show and due to all the conversations and frankly, even due to the characterization of them in Guardians 2, they are lame. They're creepy, weird, watching people that also break the fucking rules and recruit people and do all kinds of weird shit. And it's like, the more you humanize those characters, the less impactful they become into the story. Like, they're all just sus now, and like weird and not it. Does that make sense? Yeah, dude. They're just like awkward people that can't catch a hint. Ugh. Ugh. Joshua says, speaking of Secret Wars, when are we getting back to the reading those comics? I do plan to get back to that. I have to find the right time to schedule that stream, because it's got to be a long stream. But yeah. Yeah, so I don't know, man. Frankly, I think What If and almost all the vibes and stories of What If need to be completely abandoned. I don't want Doomsday or Secret Wars to have anything to do with those ideas, concepts, characters, or arcs. And I truly feel that way. Like, I would truly advise them to completely ignore that shit and just build something awesome and epic with just our DJ Dog to do. You know? But look, maybe there's a way that it could work. And I'm open to it, I suppose. But like, it's just beginning to feel like too much. Like, that just feels like too much. I don't like the MCU version of the Watchers. Nah, man. Nah. Get a grip 10 over on Twitch. Thank you for 4 months. Appreciate you. Doesn't bother me much. Just worry it confuses the casuals. Yeah. Look, maybe some of you guys don't actually think it's going to affect it that much. Like, you could just appreciate it for what it is and it's fine. Worst case scenario for me, like my worst fear, is that they will use the Watchers as like a Deus Ex Machina type story device that just explains to everybody exactly what's going on and exactly what they have to do. So like, worst case scenario, Reed Richards pops up on 616 at like the beginning of Doomsday. And everybody's like, yo, what the hell's going on? Like, Sam and his Avengers show up. The Thunderbolts show up. You know, everybody shows up and they're like, who are you and what the hell's going on? And then all of a sudden, fucking Jeffrey Wright pops out of the sky and is like, let me explain everything that's happening and why you must all now work together to save the multiverse. I'm going to be like, get your big-ass bald head out of this fucking movie, you want to? Fuck you. Like, that's the worst case scenario. God, I don't need that shit in my life. Oh my God, that would be terrible. So, I guess as long as it's not that, like, it'll be chill. You know, it could work. I just really don't want them to be like, let's become the exposition gods. You know, it's like, fuck. Rossi says, if you go bald, I won't love you as much. Just saying, heartbroken. Aw, shit. I'm going to tell Theory you said that, huh? I'm going to tell Theory you said that, and then you'll never get your Ahsoka sabers. What if it was the same scenario, but it was Beyonder instead of the Watcher? Potentially a little bit better. But again, I just don't want an exposition machine. Like, I want it to, like, be driven through story. You know what I mean? And an unfolding. Now, of course, you're going to need exposition. At the end of the day, it's a comic book film. But, like, in the story of Infinity War and, you know, going into Endgame, we are introduced to Thanos and his motivations via a story told by Nebula. Right? Where she's like, in all the time I've known my father, he only had one goal, to wipe out half the life in the galaxy. But then we actually see that, too, through flashbacks with him and young Gamora, through the fact that he kills half of the Asgardians that he encounters, you know, all of these different things. You sort of see it, and you feel and understand the motivation for it. Yeah, I just won't like it if, like, we're brought up to speed, so to speak, by the Watchers. So anyway, probably just complaining and nitpicking a little bit there as a Marvel fan, but yeah, that shit kind of bugs me. So let's now get in to our main story. So this is a pretty big deal. According to Daniel RPK, Spider-Man 4 will feature a new female love interest. Black Cat is a potential choice, but the official casting will be announced soon. Now, there have been a lot of rumors of different people that were going to be cast. Like this lady, Madeline Klein, was apparently rumored. Sydney Sweeney has been rumored. And I think the place we're going here, right, when you bring up Black Cat, a lot of people are thinking Sydney Sweeney is Black Cat. This is a big fan casting out there. Let me see if I want to pull this up for you just to kind of explain and show you where the fandom is at. It's good to just kind of know where the fandom is at, so you kind of understand it, right? As a fellow nerd, right? So I have a little meme up on the screen for you guys here to just kind of soak it in. But I think this would be huge. Peter Parker does get the ladies, and he has had various love interests throughout the years of comics. And of course, like Mary Jane, MJ is like his sort of main one. And a lot of the tension and love triangles that are built around this are kind of built on like, oh, well, maybe Mary Jane's not perfect for Peter. Maybe it is Felicia, right? And Felicia can connect to Peter on a level that Mary Jane cannot, right? And that's the Spider-Man level. So Peter being Spider-Man and going out with Black Cat and experiencing, that, which, by the way, Black Cat gets a version of the super soldier serum in the 90s cartoon, which would be really cool. I wonder if they'll put that into Spider-Man 4 in general. But that's always been interesting, right? Black Cat, Spider-Man, they have a thing. Peter and MJ, they have more of a thing together. And it's an interesting part of the lore. And I think it would build very interesting tension for the film. Now, the other thing that's wild, right, is Felicia Hardy is an absolute babe. Like, Black Cat is a babe. The reason people want Sydney Sweeney is because, like, they have similar features, let's just say. And I think the fandom would go nuts for that. And let's also realize, and I've actually been making this argument for years here, that desire and sex appeal has always been an important part of the comics. This is true of like the sort of ideal male form and the way they build up their male characters to be like idealized forms of masculinity. It's the same thing with females, like super hot female superheroes. And one of the problems that Marvel has had for a long time is they've, for some reason, decided that sex appeal, attractiveness, and desire was not appropriate or good for the Disney brand overall. But it's been silly. Right? I made this point before. Like, if you look at the Marvels, you've got three actresses. You've got Tiana, you have Brie Larson, and then you have Iman. And Iman's like much younger, so like take her out of the discussion. But even Iman, when she dresses herself in a much more attractive way. You go look at the photos that Brie Larson posts of herself. You go look at the outfits that Brie Larson wears when she goes on talk shows. Same thing with Tiana. They are very comfortable with their femininity and their attractiveness. And yet, you look at the suits and you look at what's going on in the Marvels, and it's like they took all the sex appeal away. And it's weird. It feels inorganic and weird, particularly with Captain Marvel, because, dude, in the comics, Captain Marvel's a babe. And I just don't think there's anything wrong with wanting our superheroes and our superhero ladies to be babes. I really don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think Marvel sort of cut off a huge avenue of attention and of the aspects of fandom when they decided to make this call. Now, You look at X-Men 97. And X-Men 97, even though it's a cartoon, has a lot more sex appeal and desire in it. Frankly, it's a horny show. Part of that might come from one of the lead writers, but I also feel that it fits for the X-Men overall. Brad Winderbaum did a really interesting commentary on this. He was directly asked in an interview about the horniness of X-Men 97. And his answer was great. He says there's desire on every page of every X-Men comic that ever was. And because the X-Men is somewhat of a metaphor for coming of age, going out of child, becoming adult, that change, that desire, and some of those things that come from that are appropriate for that allegory. Okay, so that's a long-winded, sophisticated way of saying I would really like it if they cast an absolute bombshell and had that person play Felicia Hardy. I think it would be awesome to see Tom Holland's Spider-Man in his new life, especially because he's going to be potentially getting the Venom symbiote. And so that's like another level of toxic masculinity, like just call it what it is. So that would be kind of interesting to see too, right? Like a Spider-Man with the Venom suit and Felicia Hardy looking like a fucking snack and have that tension and have that built into the plot of Spider-Man 4. I think it's a W. I think it's comic accurate. I hope it's Sydney Sweeney. And also, like, what does Zendaya think about this? Because is she going to be mad? Is she going to be chill? Will people on the internet be really weird about it and make all kinds of memes and jokes? Yes. So I feel, Sydney Sweeney, Black Cat, love interest for Peter Parker, being cast for Spider-Man 4. Comic book movies, having sexy superhero ladies. I'm all for it. I think it's good. Would love to know your thoughts about this. Do you agree? I mean, do you think this is a good move? Do you think that this is maybe a sign that Marvel's just kind of getting back to fan service? I mean, I don't want to get too crazy on this point, but you look at anime, right? Last thing I'll say about it. You look at anime, and anime puts, let's call it fan service, right front and center. They don't hide that shit. They flaunt that shit. And anime is insanely popular. So I think maybe you look at that, you look at the boys, you look at what's working out there. Are we about to see an era of like sex appeal re-entering the comic book movie, comic book genre? I don't know, but I would not mind that. And I think this is actually really good news. It doesn't get me as excited as like, you know, Null or Ghost Rider, some of these other things. But it would be pretty good if they did include this. So that's the report. Those are my thoughts. Would love to know your thoughts about this. What do you think? What do you think? Is it okay to like sexy ladies, or should you all feel ashamed? John says, my mask is up here. She's wearing a mask? Comic book characters hot again. Black Cat. Yeah. Mr. Falcon with a 10 spot, or rather a $20 holla. Holy, that ain't cheap. Says, thanks for the add-on Rivals. I'll carry till I develop scoliosis. Also, I ordered the first few novels of the Horus Heresy. Let's fucking go. Can't wait for them to get here. Fuck Star Wars, by the way. Yeah, totally agree with all of that, except like, wait, what? Wrap my head around that. It's been a lot. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for the love. And then we got another $20 hauler. Holy, by John. Says, happy 4 years as a nerd Avenger. Can't wrap my head around the fact that it's been that long. Been a privilege to watch you in your growth. 4 years ago, was broke and in grad school. Now am buying my first home. Dude, good for you. Nerd Vengeance for life. Appreciate you, brother. That's very kind. I'm glad you've been enjoying the content for that long. Time does fly, huh? Time does fly, but I appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah. What do you guys think? What do you think about this? I see a lot of interesting comments in the chat. I'm glad that you're all chiming in with your own thoughts and feelings. Wait, what? Babes in our comic book movies make the chuddies mad? I don't know. Maybe. Hell, she's gonna be mad. Felicia's gonna home wreck. Oh no! Zendaya is planning a wedding right now. Anyway, yeah, that's true. Zendaya owes Tom a sexy movie of his own. I'm not sure what that means, but I agree. No way it'll be Sydney Sweeney after Madam Web bombed. Oh, really? You think? I don't know, brother. How do your wife feel about it? My wife absolutely loves hot babes. So I have like the best wife that there is. She appreciates sexy hot babes. And in fact, she is really into anime. You know what? Should I tell this story? I don't know if I should tell this story. Maybe this is a Diamond Lounge story. Ask me, how about this, guys? Ask me how I got Elisa into anime. I will expand on this during the Diamond Lounge stream this Friday. But let me just say this. I have the best wife ever, and she's really into it. That's all I'll say. She collects sexy anime figures. Yeah, she does, with big, big boobs. The bigger the boobs, the better. So you're literally barking up the wrong tree with that question. But that's all right. Madeline Klein is the right choice. She looks better than Sydney Sweeney. I think they're both beautiful girls. I think they're both beautiful. I'd be happy with either pick. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Emma Lard as Black Cat? I'm not familiar with her. She's a Food Wars fan. Say no more. Yeah, but if you know, you know, and a lot of people don't. Yeah. Doesn't serve her character. Doesn't equal a bigger role in the long run like Gwyneth Paltrow. That's why I have a hold up. But it does make sense comic-wise, even though it's served better with Ven. Not 100% sure what you're saying there, but I think, like, to me, it is an important part of the Peter Parker character arc, right? Like him, and especially for a lot of us that watch that 90s show, the whole thing he has with Black Cat is so fascinating because we can totally understand. I mean, for me personally, like, I'll just be real, I would ship him with Black Cat more than I do Mary Jane, especially in that show. Mary Jane kind of like looks past Peter and Spider-Man in a lot of ways. She doesn't fully appreciate him, in my opinion. Not to make it like a soap opera thing where we're all rooting and shipping, but that's kind of what it dissolves into. And I'm way more of a fan of Felicia. She's way cooler. Like, I would say Peter should have ended up with Felicia. What do you think of that? When will people at Disney realize that all people that consume these movies aren't 13-year-olds anymore? I think they are slowly learning it. I mean, look at Deadpool and Wolverine. Again, look at X-Men 97. Look at some of the stuff we have coming out. You know, Daredevil shows a sex scene in its trailer. It's TVMA. Yeah, I think that ship is going to correct itself. I think we're on a better path. Black Cat is his side piece in the city. Yeah, could be. Also, too, I'll throw this out there. We could all be getting this wrong because it could be Gwen. It could be just a version of Gwen. And Gwen's a babe, too. I don't know if y'all knew this. Gwen Stacy's a babe, too. So, yeah, I guess we'll see. You know, Spider-Man 4's rumors are, like, hard to keep track of, dude. They're, like, it's really all over the place. A lot of stuff going on. I don't even fully understand that shit. So, we'll see. Felicia's a criminal, Josh. That's the only thing holding the OTP between her and Peter. Yeah, fair. But look what happened with Catwoman and Batman. Tom King just had those get married and be happy for a while, you know? And it's the same thing. Same dynamic, basically. Yeah. Yeah. Those cheeks probably criminal too. God damn! Yeah, probably right. Attitude Era. Wouldn't that be dope? I don't know. Pro wrestling seems to be pretty popular. It seems like pro wrestling does some fan service. Am I crazy? Am I freaking crazy? Oh, I meant that in regards to Zendaya taking a backseat. Is she okay with the actress having a little role? Yeah, she might have a diminished role anyways because I think she's shooting Euphoria or something. I'm not really sure. Haley Steinfeld? I doubt it. She's Kate Bishop. Okay, here's what I want to do. Those are all the stories. I want to catch up on some of the super chats, just go through, see what you guys said, member chat, super chat, etc. And then we're going to start the Warhammer portion of the stream. I want to discuss all 20 factions in Warhammer, and the whole purpose behind this is if you're coming into the Warhammer fandom, you're probably looking to see what army you would play, what army do you identify with. This is like a rite of passage when it comes to Warhammer. So we're going to go over all the factions. I'll give some commentary. We're going to watch a cool video. Should be a good time. Javier Mendez was first in today with a $5 holla with a cheers on it. Appreciate you, brother. Joshua says, good morning. Here's to our brave new world. I see what you did there. Joshua then follows up and says, Sydney as Black Cat would be fire. I can give you 2 big reasons why. I don't know what you're talking about, but I totally agree. Jacob Stowe says, hard to watch Star Wars in good faith until there's a leadership change. Can't convince me to expect anything different. Anyway, 48 months. Yeah, dude, Star Wars is tough. I mean, I feel like I always kind of drone on about like the same shit when it comes to Star Wars, but it's really like, that's kind of where I'm stuck. I'm like stuck in a place where there are parts of it I'm trying to enjoy. A lot of it I just completely push to the side. I'm overall very fucking angry about the state of it all. And it's hard for me to get past that anger, really. I guess when Kathy steps down, depending on who takes over and depending on what's said about the new direction, I could get a little bit more optimistic. But I mean, are we really going to do a bunch of Rey movies? Because that is not the path to my heart. So I don't know what's going to happen. Rossi says, you have to stop KK and the shit Rey movies. Call your Uncle George. You have all of your contact and powers. Why is Justified so excited about Rey movies? Justin, are you excited about the Rey movies? What's happening here? What is happening here? And then I think I caught all the other supers. Let me go through them just to make sure. Rossi says, shit, well played, sir. Snips sabers. There you go. Let's see here. John Van Gelderand Jr. Love that name. Says, hey, Josh, haven't been able to catch a live for a while because of college. Do you think Daredevil will be as good as the previous 3 seasons? Great question. I think it will be. I think it will be. And I think if it is, it's because of, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. 5 people, I think, are the secret sauce behind making sure that this new season of Daredevil is actually better than what came before. First 2 people, Vincent D'Onofrio and Charlie Cox. Now, on the one hand, it's just because their performances are going to be better than ever. They really have an incredible grasp on these characters. And I was thinking about this too, right? So they shot this show for 6 months before they totally remade it. If you're an actor, I'd have to imagine that doing 6 months on something and then basically being like, okay, well, we're going to scrap most of that and kind of go in a new direction. I have to believe that that's still 6 months of like what I would call reps, like repetition, like you're working those muscles. So to go from, not playing these characters at all to playing them a little bit here in the MCU, Matt's had sporadic appearances, Spider-Man, She-Hulk, Kingpin had sporadic appearances, Echo, Hawkeye. To do 6 months straight of getting back in the saddle, I have to believe that primes you for even better performances moving forward. So that's one reason. Number two, both of those men were really central to the reboot and the rediscussion. So I don't want to get into the full details of everything that I have heard, but Charlie himself was asking Marvel Studios to bring certain people back. He wanted to bring back Foggy and Karen. Marvel said no. He wanted to bring back the guy that did the choreography from the Daredevil show on Netflix. Marvel said no. He wanted to bring back the showrunner from the old stuff. Marvel said no. My understanding is basically everything that Charlie originally wanted, he has now been given in this new version of the show. They have the choreographer back. They have the showrunner that did Punisher that's familiar with that stuff. They brought Foggy and Karen back. They brought Tone back from the old show. So those two guys are really important to that whole formula. Another guy is the showrunner from the Punisher show. I think his help is going to be crazy. He was around those shows back in the day. He totally understands the DNA of these characters. And he's just a brilliant choice for the showrunner. And the fact that it had a showrunner now, and it was the guy that did the Punisher, I think that's huge. Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead are the other two people. These two guys have sort of quietly been workhorses of the Marvel Studios program. They're a big part of why Loki season 2 was as good as it was. They're a big part of why the parts of Moon Knight that work. They're workhorses. They came in and, from what I understand, did a ton of directing on the actual stuff that we're about to see in this new season of Daredevil. So those 5 guys together make me have a lot of faith that this show will be just as good, if not better, than the Netflix stuff that we saw before. So I appreciate the question. Allowed me to kind of blurb on some stuff that I had heard. Okay. Do me a favor, everybody. Like the video. We only have like 300 likes. That's crazy. We need way more likes, especially because I'm about to start talking about Warhammer, and half of everybody's going to leave, and everybody's going to get really mad. So you got to trick everybody and like the video. Like, do me a favor. If you're excited about the Warhammer stuff, you got to like the video. If you hate the Warhammer stuff, like the video, and then you can leave. Because we need a bunch of likes, because it's going to trick YouTube into thinking everybody loved the whole stream. And then it'll trick all the people to watch the stream. And then we could trick them into getting into Warhammer. Okay. Beautiful. Perfect. Now let me get this video pulled up here. Where's it at? Where's it at? Where's it at? For real. I had it pulled up. Oh, what the hell? Okay, I'll find it again. Don't worry, guys. Don't worry. I'll find it again. What the hell? Okay.
Some videos every Warhammer YouTuber is required by internet law to make, and now it's my turn, except unlike every other...
Okay, so we're gonna watch this gentleman's video. I really like this guy's stuff for Warhammer, but again, let me give this a little context. What we're doing right now is we're going to watch a video that breaks down every faction in Warhammer. There's about 20 of them. These are the different armies that you could build and associate yourself with as you come into the Warhammer fandom. So this is just a rite of passage within Warhammer. Everybody that gets into it is going to have to figure out what army they would play. My own personal experience of this was really interesting. At first, I really liked the Necrons, and I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna do the Necrons. I got interested in the Chaos Demons for a while, and I was like, yo, Chaos Demons are lit. And then eventually, yeah, I was like, okay, these versions of Space Marines are cool. These are cool. And it's like over time, I found out about the Adeptus Custodes, and I was like, yo, the Custodes are lit. Why wouldn't you want to be the best? Why wouldn't you want to be the best super soldiers in the galaxy? That's what the Custodes are. So I picked that as my main army. And then the next army I started building was the Dark Angels. I love Arthurian knights and mythology and swords and, you know, all that stuff. So that's kind of my journey. So let's now go over all 20 factions in just 20 minutes.
A version of this video out there, and there are loads. This one is just going to take 20 minutes, and since there are about 20 factions in 40k, that gives me just under a minute to do each, which is plenty of time, right? As long as I don't spend too long on this intro. Smash that like button.
And I'll pause and give some commentary and thoughts on all of these as well. And if you're out there and you're getting into Warhammer, consider all this stuff, and maybe after we watch this together, you'll have a better idea of what army would be your army if you got into Warhammer.
Okay, the universe of Warhammer 40k has a lot of factions. That's actually one of the main draws of the game, but you can divide them up pretty neatly into 3 categories. The Imperium, which is the main protagonist and human point of view faction.
Yeah,
Chaos,
the good guys. Quote, unquote, the good guys.
who are kind of the main antagonist, and the horror faction
Yeah,
centered
chaos. Bad.
around the hellish alternate dimension that is the Warp. And finally, Xenos, the alien species who also inhabit the galaxy and usually have a difficult relationship with the previous two. The biggest presence in the galaxy, at least officially, is the Imperium, so let's start there. The Imperium is a colossal, unwieldy, bureaucratic, authoritarian empire that insists on total control over all of humanity in the name of the Emperor, the psychic demigod who founded it 10,000 years before, but
Big G, man. He's the fucking man, unless you're a heretic.
who now, because of a civil war shortly after that founding, exists as a barely aware corpse strapped to a life support machine.
I mean, is he barely alive as a corpse strapped to a life support machine? Yes. Is he still the emperor? Yes.
And worshipped by humanity as a god. It's not a nice place to live. Everyone's very, very clear about that. And it's so huge and unwieldy that infighting between its various internal factions for political control or territory is pretty commonplace.
Yeah.
But the poster faction of the Imperium are the Space Marines, and they're meant to be above all that. Genetically engineered and psycho-conditioned transhuman super soldiers, the Space Marines are the elite special forces of the Imperium.
You know, when I was watching you guys chat about this last night on Discord, somebody brought up, they were like, yeah, the armor is like weird for me. It's like bulky and stuff, but it's almost like they're all the Juggernaut. And I was like, that's kind of true. That's what it is. So that's power armor. And the stuff on their back is like literally just a massive fucking battery that powers this insane power armor. And that really is what they are. Like, they're meant to be just super durable death machines. And they're fucking awesome.
Taken from their homeworlds as children, clad in powered armor and wielding the iconic bolt gun. Once, long ago, they were organized into great legions led by the Emperor's sons, demigods known as Primarchs, but the
Primarchs are dope, and sometimes, like, it kind of depends for different people, but sometimes if you really like a certain Primarch, that's like you're in to then like the faction or the codex or index of that particular army, right?
result was that civil war we mentioned, so by the time of 40k, they exist as 1,000 autonomous, self-sufficient armies known as chapters, each of which functions a bit like a knightly order or monastic brotherhood, tasked with the defense of a particular area and recruiting from those planets, which means that each chapter of Space Marines is influenced by the culture of its homeworld, from the Roman-influenced Ultramarines to the Viking-influenced Space Wolves.
Yeah, for sure. And like it's been fun like talking to Matt about this too, because he really likes the salamanders and he likes the Space Wolves. And part of the reason he likes the Space Wolves is he just likes, like, you know, Odin, Thor, that kind of motif, that Scandinavian idea. It's a little bit like parts of Tolkien stuff as well. But yeah, he likes the Space Wolves.
Space Marines are an organization set somewhat apart from the rest of the Imperium. They protect their territories in the name of the Emperor and their Primarch in whatever way they see fit, and are treated by the rest of the Imperial armies as a kind of holy special forces petitioned for aid in a particular war zone or to conduct a particular mission. It's so rare to see one in real life that to many of the Imperium's regular citizens or mortal soldiers, they're seen almost as angels.
The Emperor's angels. Like, if you see a Space Marine, you know shit's about to go down. It's not a common sight for like your everyday citizen of the universe of 40K. But of course, if you're battling or you're telling a story, the Space Marines are going to be heavily involved in that because they are just such a powerful part of why the Imperium ends up unifying and ends up winning, and then it ends up destroying itself because of a civil war. It's because of the legions, and it's because Horus was in charge of all of the legions.
Loads of different chapters of Space Marines. In fact, you can make your own, and there are way too many to go through here. But two organizations that stand apart from the chapter system are the Grey Knights and the Death Watch.
Yeah.
The Grey Knights are a chapter of psychic Space Marines, clad in even more elite armor and dedicated to fighting the forces of Chaos and the Warp, which we'll get to in a minute.
If I do a third army, it will be the Grey Knights. The Grey Knights are dope. So just to kind of like clarify something, the Grey Knights were not created by one of the Primarchs. Their gene seed is obviously from either one of the Primarchs or one of the versions of the Marines, but they are actually instituted by Malcador the Sigillite. Malcador is kind of like Merlin if the Emperor is Arthur. He's just like this wizard dude that kind of helps the Emperor. He's super badass, super powerful, and he institutes the Grey Knights. The Grey Knights are secretive Space Marines. All of them are psychers, so they all have like psychic magic abilities, and they are literally just for fighting against chaos. So they kind of stand apart from the other Space Marine chapters in a really interesting way, simply because they're all magic users and they specialize in hunting and killing demons.
They're even more secretive and rare than the rest of the Space Marines, partly because when they're deployed, it's usually against the most horrific threats the Imperium ever encounters, issues that only the Grey Knights, with their mastery of psychic power, Aegis-warded armor, and Nemesis force weapons can handle. Their counterparts are the Death Watch, an organization of Space Marines from different chapters who band together to pool their experience in fighting different Xenos threats.
Yeah.
The Death Watch use unique, advanced technologies in their kill teams, who operate covertly from watch fortresses stationed across the galaxy. But even though there are 1,000 chapters of Space Marines and those special organizations, Space Marines are actually really rare. The vast majority of the Imperium's armed forces are known as the Astra Militarum or Imperial Guard. Space is a big place and planets are very far apart, so every Imperial world is required to raise its own defense forces and then tithe a portion of those into the Imperial Guard, deployed by the million across the Imperium's many, many war zones. Though the Guard regiments come from a huge variety of different cultures, they're still just humans, armed with the ubiquitous lasgun and backed up by...
And so, like, the Guard is kind of an interesting army. So they have, like, really cool tanks. Like, I think this is a Rogel Dorn tank right here on the screen. And from what I've seen, the people that like to play Guard or choose the Imperial Guard as their, army, they're usually people that just want to sort of bolster the idea that humanity on its own, just as an army with their own military might, is enough to like win wars and fight battles and kill demons, etc., etc. There are some really cool characters. Like there's this one dude that's like on a horse. He's one of the most badass models in the game, but they don't have a lot of really powerful special characters, right? So you're not going to get actual Space Marines. You're not going to get Primarchs and stuff like that. Guard is usually just more of like a traditional wargaming army. And for some people, if you have history in like other war games and you just like strategizing artillery, different types of units doing different things, those are the kind of people that like gravitate towards the Guard.
columns of tanks and artillery driven forward by their commissars. The Astra Militarum also includes auxiliary units like the abhuman Ogrins or Ratlings or the elite Tempestus Scion Special Forces, but the Imperial Guard's biggest weapon is numbers. The Imperium does not value human life particularly highly, and depictions of the glorious battles of the Imperial Guard are usually a horde of people being driven forward until the enemy run out of bullets. Those are the two main military arms of the Imperium, but the Imperium is a very complex organization, and each of its administrative arms maintains its own armed forces to protect its interests, often against some of the others. The state religion of the Imperium is controlled and enforced by the Adeptus Ministorum, and defending their shrine worlds and cathedrals are the Adepta Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle. Orders of...
Yeah, this army is fucking dope, bro. The Sisters of Battle, their lore is really, really interesting, but they are essentially an all-female force that gets power from their faith in the Emperor as a god. And I don't want to get too lost in the sauce here, but like the Sisters are so interesting because the conventional wisdom in Warhammer is that everything that happens that's magical and miraculous is a result of the warp. The warp is like that parallel universe, that sort of hellscape. It's not automatically a hellscape, by the way. It becomes a hellscape because the universe is hell and then it's imprinted on the warp. But the point is, like, there's most of like the magical shit in Warhammer comes from the warp. So we talked about the Grey Knights. They use the psychic abilities, right? That's all coming from the warp. But the Necrons have technology to shut down the warp, put like bubbles of anti-warp space so psychers cannot use their ability, etc., etc. In one of the recent novels, the Sisters entered a space that the Necrons had set up to not be able to use the warp, and the Sisters were still able to use their magic power upgrades, etc. The indication there is that it's actually not coming from the warp, and they are literally channeling some kind of divine power that exists within the actual universe, maybe just via the Emperor, or maybe via to some kind of different faith. It's kind of interesting.
Highly trained and lavishly equipped warrior nuns. Clad in powered armor and armed with bolt guns and flamers, their faith in the Emperor manifests in the form of miracles and living saints. They're supported by the preachers and confessors of the church, as well as those poor unfortunates who committed a sin and have to atone for it through death in battle. Technology in the Imperium is seen through a haze of superstition and ritual guarded by the Adeptus Mechanicus, a galaxy-spanning network of tech priests who worship knowledge. Tech priests are present in every part of the Imperium, from maintaining starships to keep...
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So the Astra Militarum, or the tech priests, right? And all these people from Mars. It's fascinating because they're a lot like in Dune, how you have those humans that interface with technology. Like, remember the guy in the first Dune movie that kept like rolling his eyes back and then he was like doing like robot shit? That's what these people are, but they also have like their own weapons, their own army, etc. And the entire Imperium runs off of these guys. Like, without these guys, no ship would fly, no weapons would be made, no interstellar travel, like none of it. In fact, even the creation of like the Primaris Marines and the Space Marines, it all hinges on this faction here. They tend to play really like techie. They do a lot of really interesting tricks, have very powerful weapons. They're super shooty. So they're kind of interesting.
The factories going. But while their forge worlds supply the main Imperial armies with very standardized military equipment, their own forces are way more diverse. Crazed blends of steampunk-inspired machinery, cybernetic soldiers, and
you've
what
showed me
few
this before.
robots the Imperium still maintains, including the gigantic battle walkers known as Titans.
All right, Kendall, I see your point.
Smaller than those Titans, but still really big on the table, are the Imperial Knights, descendants of some of the first...
Dude, the Knights are sick. So this is a faction for people that like love like your Gundam mechs or, you know, mech anime and stuff like that, because like the Dreadnoughts, unfortunately, not super cool. Those are like your brutally murdered or you lose all your limbs in battle, and so they just inter you in a robot, and like your brain interfaces with a robot for the rest of the time, and it's like really fucked up. It's actually not a good time. Instead, the Titans, these are actually piloted by people, so they're more like mechs, less horrific, and they get passed down like through royalty and family lines and stuff like that. The Titans are super dope, and they are piloted, which is pretty cool.
Human colonists who left Earth. Night worlds are feudal planets led by a landed nobility mounted in medieval mechs known as knights that they use to hunt indigenous predators and protect their planets. Houses of imperial knights might be independent vassals of the Imperium or pledged to aid the Adeptus Mechanicus. Now, the Emperor, when he was a bit more around, was a big fan of genetically engineered warriors, and his personal bodyguard, the Adeptus Custodes, were the pinnacle of his craft.
Best faction in the game. I'm biased because it's my faction, but I also picked it because it is the best. Let me explain. All the shit we're talking about, all the other armies we talked about, like the Space Marines, are super soldiers created, and they're these like big, bulky, power armor looking dudes, right? The Sisters of Battle, they have power armor, they have the faith of the Emperor, etc., right? Tanks, all these different weapons. So the Custodes were the original companions and warriors that helped the Emperor conquer Earth, helped him in the crusade, and each Adeptus Custodi is handcrafted at the molecular level to become a literal perfect soldier. So the Emperor of Mankind is kind of like Mr. Sinister. He's always like messing with like genetics and alchemy and shit like that. The Custodes are his masterpiece. Each one of them is perfect pinnacle of human genetic potential, and they have the best weapons, the best armor. They're literally the best, and they're just big old golden boys. Let's hear what he has to say.
More elite than the Space Marines or the Grey Knights. The Custodes in 40k are a brotherhood of warrior philosophers clad in ancient Auramite armor and wielding the symbolic Guardian Spear. They're pledged to protect the Emperor in the Imperial Palace on Terra, but they range across the galaxy, bolstering his armies or eliminating potential security threats before they grow to be a problem. And they're assisted in their mission by the Sisters of Silence, an all-female order of anti-psychic nulls who can counter and dissipate the forces of the warp. Together, these are known as the Talons of the Emperor. And finally, the Imperial Navy command the fleets and battleships that get all these armies to their war zones. Imperial ships are kilometers long and millennia old. Barely understood Leviathan.
They're so dope.
From a forgotten age, and their crews live their entire lives within them, rarely setting foot on land. Each ship has a crew of thousands, from brutally treated gun crews to officers from distinguished military bloodlines, but for obvious reasons, they're rarely seen on the tabletop. The Imperium also has many smaller factions that might be included in your wider army, like the Inquisition, special agents rooting out heresy and secret threats from within, accompanied by idiosyncratic bands of skilled followers, or the assassins of the Officio Assassinor.
Oh, the assassins are so fucking cool. So most Imperial armies, you can have allied units. So oftentimes, like this one over here, like the lady with the big braid, that's a Callistus assassin, I believe, or I forget the name of it, but she is so cool, man. And so I'll run my Custodes, and then I run like a little assassin as well, and she just like runs around the board and tries to kill people. It's super cool.
Ancient temples, each dedicated to a different art of death. The Adeptus Arbites keep the Imperium's laws and ensure that its planets are performing their duty to the Emperor, and the forces of the rogue traders are licensed explorers and privateers, commissioned to push...
Rogue traders are awesome, and there was a game that came out last year called Rogue Trader, and it was kind of like Baldur's Gate within the Warhammer universe. It's a great game to try out if you just want to experience more of the Warhammer lore in general. In that game, you are a rogue trader, and you have like your own ship, your own crew, and you're able to do a lot of stuff that other characters are not able to do within the Imperium. And so it's a really interesting game to kind of get a feel for the world.
towards the boundaries of Imperial space. Anyway, we haven't got time for all of those. That's the main Imperial.
Morpho Nods, appreciate the $10, man. Says, dude, I foresee you being a huge influence in ushering the Warhammer takeover of all other IPs. Thank you so much for pushing through and showing everyone the light of the Emperor. The Emperor protects. Oh, hell yeah, brother. Hey, I'm doing my part. And Matt and I have been talking a lot about, we hopefully can record one of the first episodes of Nerd Hammer really soon. And I think that is a crucial role that we will play in the fandom, is helping new people and helping to convert people into Warhammer. Like, that's a big part of it for me, man. I think Warhammer will be the next big thing. Been saying it for a while. I'm obsessed, and it's fun, too. Now, look, I want to say one more thing, and then we're going to get back into this video, because I know it's not a unanimous thing. I know there are people within the community that don't love Warhammer, that don't love how much I'm trying to push it, etc., etc. One thing I want everybody to know, and actually, Callisto hit me up about this on Discord, and she said it's really enjoyable to see you passionately talk about some nerdy shit again. And we know that that's like hard when it comes to Star Wars, DC, and even Marvel in some ways. So even if you can't appreciate Warhammer, I would hope that you could at least appreciate that I am genuinely excited and happy about this thing again. So I'm not going to like have it take over all of these channels. That's why I'm doing the new channel with Matt. But I figured, why not at least throw some of that stuff into these streams? Because Warhammer is fucking dope, man. And I do want you guys to know that.
Factions, let's move on to the main antagonist of 40k, the Forces of Chaos. The 40k universe exists alongside a parallel dimension known as the Warp, a dimension of emotional and psychic energy where time and space mean little. And there are things living in the Warp. All that emotional energy over time has coalesced into great powers, horrific, godlike intelligences that want to break into real space and corrupt the sentient species that live there.
Yep.
Which would be fine if the Imperium didn't also rely on the Warp for interstellar travel and communications, so over time various factions have been corrupted by it.
Yep.
The most prominent of these are the Chaos Space Marines. Remember that great civil war we were talking about earlier? Well, these are the guys who rebelled. They might have lost their great rebellion, the Horus Heresy, 10,000 years ago, but they've been hiding out in the Warp ever since, where time doesn't really mean much, growing more and more bitter and powerful over 10,000 years as more and more renegade Space Marines flock to their cause. Chaos Space Marine raiding...
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to like the dark side of the Force, right? So it's almost like you have all these Space Marines and super soldiers, and some of them kind of get corrupted. Some of them fall to the dark side. And then just like in Star Wars, when the Sith can get eyes and then start to, you know, look different like Palpatine looks towards the end. And that's all part of the corruption. You have that in Warhammer as well.
Parties are a constant threat in many parts of the galaxy, but those threats pale in comparison to the Great Black Crusades, led by Abaddon the Despoiler, where thousands of ancient heretic Astartes descend on the Imperium, armed not only with ancient patterns of Space Marine arms and armor, but also twisted demon engines that fuse forbidden science.
My buddy plays Chaos Demons, and these things are called Soul Forges, and he runs a couple of these things. They are a pain in the ass to deal with, man.
With the raw stuff of the Warp itself. Like the Space Marines of the Imperium, the Chaos Space Marines can be broken down into various legions and warbands, each of which is slightly different, but there are a couple of ones that are quite unique. The Thousand Suns serve the Chaos...
So these guys are in Space Marine 2, maybe you're familiar.
...powered Tzeentch, god of magic. And before the heresy, their mastery of the psychic arts was unmatched. But since their fall to Chaos, the majority of the Legion have become nothing more than animated suits of armor enthralled to ridiculously powerful sorcerers and accompanied...
Yeah, so inside all this armor is just dust. So if you played Space Marine and then you killed one of these guys and then like there's no body, it's just like a bunch of sparks and dust, that's because that's a part of their curse. So they're sort of cursed, almost like Full Metal Alchemist and Alphonse. Like they're just kind of animated living suits of armor, which is super fucked up.
By twisted magical beasts. The flip side to this is the Death Guard, dedicated to Nurgle, the god of disease. Their plague marines are bloated, filth-encrusted parodies of the noble warriors they once were, trudging relentlessly forward and spreading viruses and
they're real gross.
Plague wherever they go. And finally, the World Eaters worship Khorne, the manifestation of rage and anger.
Khorne is my favorite of the Chaos Gods, and like I just like the berserker fighting kind of attitude of Khorne.
Their warriors are barely controllable berserkers created by brutal psychosurgery, existing only to spill blood in the name of their lord. And wherever any of the Chaos Space Marines go, a greater threat follows. Once the barriers between the worlds have been thinned, the denizens of the warp itself can break through. These Chaos demons are nightmares given form, hordes of
actual demons. Look at these pink horrors.
Twisted creatures dedicated to one of the four great chaos powers, Khorne, Tzeentch, Slaanesh, and Nurgle, are made in their image. They sweep in through breaches in real space, damning entire worlds to an eternity of slaughter for the amusement of the thirsting gods. Chaos, of course, can corrupt anything, and some of their more powerful scions are the Chaos Knights, the descendants of Imperial Knight houses.
Chaos Knights are super badass. Basically just like the Knights, except went dark side.
That threw their lot in with the traitors millennia ago. Their Night Walkers are twisted horrors, suffused with the power of the warp. Their pilots fused into their command thrones or possessed by demons. And like the Imperium, there are also many smaller factions in the background. Corrupted tech priests known as the Dark Mechanicum labor in their hell forges to supply the Chaos Marine armies with demon engines, and human cultists or traitor Imperial guardsmen make up the hordes of the lost and the damned. But it's not just the armies of the Imperium that are in danger from the warp. Chaos is something of an existential threat to everyone in the 40k universe. And humanity isn't the only target for them. There are other alien species in the galaxy that are right to fear the warp. The Eldari were once the most powerful empire in the galaxy before the rise of the Imperium, a long-lived and extremely psychic species, but their power and hubris saw their homeworlds consumed by chaos, and in the universe of 40k, they're a dwindling, dying race, living in fear of their souls being eaten by the...
Yeah, so basically, like, the short story on the Eldar is they conquered everything, they were the best of the best, and then they kind of, like, get bored as a culture, and they start kind of getting into like perverse, deviant behavior. And eventually, because they're so like psychic and they have a lot of emotions, they actually create a whole new chaos god because there's just so many of them, and they start all kind of breaking bad. And that creates a new chaos god, Slaanesh. When Slaanesh pops up, she like wipes them the fuck out and takes a lot of their souls. Hey, Chapter Master Valrak, what's up, baby? Just trying to convert everybody to Warhammer over here. No big deal. So the Eldar basically just become a bunch of pervs and then create Slaanesh. And then after that, there's some of them that continue to go dark, like the Drukhari. And they sort of they try to save their own souls by like just putting so much pain, misery, and horror into the world that like Slaanesh is pleased or whatever. And then there are the Craft World Eldar, who are the remaining good guys from the Eldar race. And they're still like elves from fantasy. They're snooty. They think they're better than everybody, but they're very few in number. But they're very powerful. They're pretty cool. I was talking with Justin in the DMs because Justin is a big Warhammer hater. And I keep telling him like I'm going to convert him. And so far, he's kind of leaning in the direction of the Eldar for his army. But then he was like, but why is everything got to be so doom and gloom? And I was like, because life is hard and so is Warhammer. Holy.
Warp and the ways they try and avoid that fate define which sort of Eldari they are. The Craftworld Eldar live on vast Wraithbone spaceships known as Craftworlds, colossal cities swimming through the depths of space. They lead ordered, contemplative lives, and to stave off the warp, they dedicate themselves to different structured paths. Their forces are made up of the various warrior aspects of their ancient dead gods.
I think the Eldar are dope, man. I really love the uniqueness of their like armor and their weapons.
And Wraithbone constructs powered by Eldar souls trapped within spirit stones, all led by their Farseers, who manipulate the strands of fate to ensure the Eldar's survival. On the flip side, the Drukhari are cruel and sadistic Eldari pirates who live in the webway, halfway between real space and the warp. With no access to spirit stones, they replenish their ever-fading souls by torturing prisoners taken in raids, and their societies are split between the Cabals that rule their dark city of Camorra, the gladiatorial witch cults, and the homunculus covens, who guarantee unnaturally long lives to the rest of the Drukhari by performing hideous experiments on enslaved species. In between these
fucking wild, bro. Probably I would say maybe the darkest faction in the game is the Drukhari. Like, if you do not want to be captured by the Drukhari. Like, you just don't. The wet way? No, it's the web way. So it's like a series of tunnels through the warp that allows for like instantaneous interstellar travel. It was like their great success. And then it all got fucked up.
These two main factions are the Harlequins, deadly dancers and performers who travel between both Eldar societies to keep the old Eldar myths alive, and whose souls are pledged to their laughing god, Kegarak. And the Yinari, a cult of the Eldar god of death. And like everything else in 40k, there are other factions that aren't often seen on the tabletop, like the pirate Corsairs, or the Exodites, who retreated from the fall of the Eldar to the most verdant and far-flung planets in the ancient empire. All the Eldari were originally created by the long-dead and near-mythical race known as the Old Ones. But the Old Ones must have been big fantasy fans because, if you haven't figured it out now, they're fantasy elves in space.
Yep.
And if we've got elves in space, though not officially part of the Imperium, the kin of the Leagues of Votan are descended from the earliest human colonists who settled near the galactic center and have preserved much of the lost technical knowledge of humanity in the form of huge data cores known as Votan. By the time of 40k, the kin of the Leagues are genetically engineered clones created by the Votan and genetically tailored to whatever job is needed, and their armies range across the galaxy, identifying planets that might be ripe for exploitation and profit. They're stocky and serious and durable, and yep, they're fantasy dwarves in space.
Fantasy dwarfs in space. So you got your dwarves, you got your elves, you got all that.
Continuing the fantasy theme, 40k also has orcs. Like the Eldari, the orcs were created long ago by the Old Ones for one thing only: war. But after millions of years, they've forgotten their origins and are now a dangerously random problem for everyone else in the galaxy. Rampaging around in colossal migrations known as wars. Orcs are kind of the comic relief in 40k. Their society is based entirely around fighting, and they go to war in ramshackle vehicles accompanied by a range of squiggly beasts to ride, fight, eat, wear, or attack with. They also speak like 1980s football hooligans for some reason. It's a common orc thing.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Pretty much the opposite of that is the Tau Empire.
The Tau are kind of interesting. I don't know. I almost picked Tau as my army. There were a couple of things where I was like,
small, self-contained civilization in the galactic east, and the sort of Xenos threat that the Imperium would probably have wiped out earlier if they weren't beset on all sides by more pressing matters. The Tau are an optimistic and hopeful faction, divided into 5 elemental castes who work to advance their philosophy of the greater good. Detesting close combat, they fight from within high-tech...
Dude, the orcs are so funny. You know, I know some orc players, and it's just got to be so fun to play because you think about it. You build up this army of just knuckle-headed, like, bro dudes that all just want to fight. He didn't talk about this, but they also have this weird ability that, like, whatever they believe to happen is real. So they have some kind of psychic ability. Like, for instance, the most common one is the orcs believe putting flames on a car makes it go faster. And because they believe that, they literally go faster. Orcs can also go look at like a pile of trash and imagine that it's actually a spaceship. And then all of a sudden it's a spaceship. So they're just fucking ridiculous, dude. And they're super hard to kill, super funny. And then they have abilities that you get to scream and yell. So if you do a wah ability, like every orc player I've ever seen will use that ability on the tabletop, and then they yell wah, and usually it's obnoxiously loud, and then everybody at the tournament is like, well, there's an orc player.
Battle suits or advanced vehicles, and are supported by a range of alien species they've absorbed into their growing empire, like the mercenary Kroot, peerless hunters and trackers, or the Vespid. Now, if the Tau are the youngest playable faction in the 40k universe, then the award for the oldest...
Yeah, so the Tau, just to touch on this, they're basically like blue fish people that for some reason are way more advanced than they should be. In the lore, some humans find the Tau at a very early stage and literally files a report that says like, hey, these Tau motherfuckers are like expanding and getting technology way faster than we did. We should probably wipe them all out. And then due to like some kind of bureaucratic error, they just never do. And they find them like 1,000 years later and they're like building fucking mechs and shit. And they're like, oh my God. So now the Tau are kind of like a problem. There's a lot of interesting theories about them. Like maybe they have an STL from the dark age of technology. Maybe they were created by the Eldar. There's like some really cool kind of mysterious aspects to them. But they're basically like space communists. So they believe in the greater good and everybody should be like singing fucking hymns and chilling. But there's like a dark side to that whole thing too, where it's like, we believe in the greater good and you will too. And if you don't, we'll kill you.
Goes to the Necrons. Once, millions of years ago, the Necron tier fought a great war against the Old Ones. In fact, that's one of the reasons the Old Ones kept creating all those other species to fight for them. After half the galaxy was destroyed, the Necron tier went to sleep, their ancient dynasties surviving in skeletal metal bodies in great tomb worlds. And as the 41st millennium draws to a close, they're starting to wake up. The Necrons are kind of like...
Yeah, Necrons are really cool. So I'll TLDR, like, my sort of thoughts on them. They're aliens that exist, and they had, like, basically super cancer, where, like, their planet just existed way too close to a sun, and they had really, really bad cancer. It was crazy. They would all just die, live terrible lives. They'd all mutate, and it was really, really bad. These random gods, known as the Old Ones, that basically all look like frogs, like we're just chilling out one time, and the Necron tier like was like, hey, you are immortal, you guys could help us out, show us all like your technology and stuff. And the frog gods were like, psh, nah. And then the Necron tier was like, okay, well, I guess that makes sense, but you could at least cure us of this crazy cancer we all have. That would be dope and lit, right? And all of the frog gods were basically like, nah, and just left. And the Necrons got so fucking mad that they expanded their own empire, went all the way out into the reach of the galaxy. They found these other gods known as the Catan. They ended up making a deal with the Catan, which was basically to give them immortal bodies. So they wouldn't have to deal with the cancer anymore, and they'd be fine. But it cost them all their souls. Most of the Necrons are mindless. They don't have a personality. They don't have a soul. They have no individuality. Some of them do, but most of them do not. So it was kind of a raw deal. Ultimately, the Necrons get so fucking pissed. They beat up the Old Ones. They end up capturing the Catan after they realize that the Catan tricked them into taking their souls. They make the Catan into their own weapons. The Necrons are just fucking crazy. So at some point, they all basically go like, oh man, this sucks. Let's all just go to sleep for 65 million years. And I'm sure when we wake up, things will be much better. And that's what's happening currently in 40K is like, they're all waking up.
Like space undead, blending legions of durable automatons, led by cunning overlords and cryptechs whose science is so advanced it appears like magic to everyone else.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And finally, on our whistle-stop tour of 40k, we come to the ultimate end, the great devourer itself, the Tyranids. Attracted by the light of our galaxy, the Tyranids are an extragalactic bug swarm that exists only to devour, descending on planets and stripping them clean of biomass, leaving only lifeless and barren rocks in their wake as the swarm moves on. They are totally unknowable and alien, their technology entirely biological and governed as much by animalistic instinct as by their group intelligence.
Yeah, so they're kind of like an eldritch horror. I don't know. I mean, some of them are insect-like, some of them are not. I mean, I guess they all kind of look like insects. They're like an ancient eldritch horror, a mindless swarm that just wants to devour biomass. So they go to planets, they completely wipe out all the organic life and assimilate it into their own army. They're also very adaptable. So if you fight them, then they'll consume biomass, and the next round of things they create will be adapted and not weak to the weapons you used. So they're like this instinctual predatory force. I have a friend that plays Tyranids. They're very cool, very fun and swarmy to play on the battlefield. Not a lot of great lore, but ironically, they are technically the most morally correct faction in Warhammer, because all they want to do is just eat everything. They don't have any kind of ideas about this or that. They don't have a dark secret. They don't pretend to be something and then have, like, you know, a real motivation going on. Out of all the factions in Warhammer, probably the most morally justified, just because they're just looking for a snack. They're, yeah, kind of like the Flood from Halo. Yeah.
A hive mind. But they are capable of planning, as evidenced by their offshoot faction, the Gene Stealer cults.
The
Gene Stealers are a Tyranid bioform designed to infiltrate unwary worlds, spreading through the population like a parasite and controlling their followers by a low-level psychic field. Gene Stealer cults destabilize the host planet from within, which then rise up in bloody revolution.
Yeah, it's so weird. So the Gene Stealers will, like, infiltrate a planet quietly and start taking over some of the nobles or, like, some of the people on the planet, and it just gets them all to worship the Tyranids and start to, like, basically destabilize the planet so that then the swarm can come in and wipe them out. So it's kind of fascinating. They're a fascinating faction.
Just as the hive fleet of the Tyranids draws near, hastening the planet's demise. Okay, that's 20 factions. Did I do more than that? There's loads more to go into here. This is only the briefest introduction to each faction, but it should give you an idea of the variety out there and sort of vaguely how they're all related to each other. The 40k universe is a very, very big place, continually expanded for 35 years now with new models, new stories, and new information. There are still whole species and civilizations who've never made it to the tabletop, whole arms of the Imperium that haven't really been investigated, so this list is likely to grow in the future. How do they play? What models are available? Well, those are all subjects for other videos, but if you're new to 40k, then hopefully that gives you some ideas on where to start. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so great video. This guy makes great videos. You should check him out. But I think the main thing to keep in mind is, like, for me, you know, when I was first getting into Warhammer, I don't know, man. Like, I watched probably, like, videos like this for, like, a straight year. And parts of it would be interesting to me. Some of it I wouldn't remember. But everything that I found interesting, I would investigate further. And then I'd kind of make a decision from there. So, like, initially, I really liked the Necrons. And I was like, oh, man, like, you know, they're really cool. I like their technology. I like their weapons. I like their models. I like their backstory, etc. But it kind of killed it for me a little bit when I realized, like, they're mostly mindless. And there's only, like, a handful of them that actually have, like, personalities and are interesting. Now, those ones are really interesting, like Trazyn the Infinite, the Silent King. Like, these are cool characters, but it's just, like, not the same, you know? So that kind of, like, dissuaded me from getting into the Necrons a bit. I thought about and was interested in different versions of the Space Marines. And, like, for instance, like, I really liked the Salamanders at first, and I was like, oh, man, they're so cool. The only problem with the Salamanders is, like, their Primarch's missing. Their numbers are super low. They're kind of not really playable in 40k. Like, you can run the Salamanders, but they don't have enough unique pieces for it to not feel like you're just running basic Space Marines. And I was like, that's kind of not as cool. Ultimately, like, for me, when I learned more and more about the Custodes, I was like, oh my God, bro, like, these are the homies. Like, I really like these characters. I like their weapons. I like the moral dilemma. I like Constantine Valdor, you know? So, yeah. What do you think, guys? Anything interesting? Any questions you have for me about any of this stuff? We're going to get out of here soon, but we can talk about this a little bit more. I thought the orcs were the most moral since they just want to have fun. Technically, the orcs are moral in that they don't have like right or wrong. They're not trying to do anything twisted. They're just trying to fight, right? And I've heard people say that before, that like the orcs are actually the most morally like appreciative. But if you think about it, like they look down on people that don't fight. They just want to smash everything and destroy and expand. And it is somewhat motivated by like technically they think less of people and people's lives if they don't fight, so they'll kill innocents, etc., etc. So I guess the orcs and Tyranids are probably the two most morally gray factions. I could see that. Some people think the Tau is, but the Tau have like super dark secrets. Like the Tau is not But, you know, like, that's kind of crazy because is there a black market site for figures like I use for Lego? Well, there's a couple of different things you could do with the figures. So, number one, 3D printing and proxy is a thing. So, like, for example, I purchased 15 of the Deathwing Knights, but I purchased them 3D printed off Etsy. Okay. And the reason why is because that box to make them is like $60 to $80 for every 3 of them, I think, or maybe it's for every 5. I bought 15 of them for that same price. I basically did not want to buy all of those models individually. You know, maybe eventually I'll buy the official models and like paint them up or whatever. But especially if you're just playing casually or you just want to have some cool models, I would look into 3D printing or like buying off like Facebook Marketplace or whatever. You can find like, you know, cheaper prices there. Ultimately, there's no way around it. If you want a full army, it is expensive. So it's kind of like golf, right? Like, if you want to play golf, you're eventually going to have to get your own set of clubs, and you eventually probably want to get a pretty good set of clubs. That's going to run you a couple $1,000s, right? Over time, upgrading your clubs, having really nice ones, etc., right? But once you have a set of clubs, like, you're basically good. You know, you're good. And you can go golf all the time with your set of clubs. It's the same thing in Warhammer. Once you have an army, you will end up spending a little amount each year, like a couple new models or whatever, or upgrades to your army over time. But that initial cost of getting a full army, there's just no way around it. It is expensive. But you don't even have to do that. A lot of people just enjoy Warhammer and they don't even have a full army. They've never played the game. They just have a few models they think are cool. They still sort of identify with that army and they read the lore and, you know, they're excited about that army. I think that's totally fine. You can also just play the video games or whatever. I play a lot on Tabletop Simulator. In fact, I think I'm going to play again tonight. My buddy and I played over the weekend and we have the itch again, man. We really want to play again soon. So we might even play some Warhammer tonight on Tabletop Simulator. And you can play that for essentially free. You have to buy the simulator, which I think is like $20, and you have to like download the files, the digital assets. But there's a community of people that play all on the simulator, and you can do that for free. So that's kind of an option too. And Joshua says, I'm working next to a mirror, look over and almost shit my pants. Right on, brother. Stream that on Twitch one night. Yeah, I mean, I'll ask my buddy. Maybe he would be down and we could stream some of that and I could show you like what the actual game looks like. The game is complex, just like everything else in Warhammer. If you are a fan of tabletop gaming, you will fucking love it, dude. Like, again, I was able to convert all of my friend group to the game just by getting them to play it. I took all the pain points out of it, right? Where I was like, you don't have to build, you don't have to paint, you don't even have to know the rules. I'll break through everything. All you got to do is roll these dice and decide how to move your pieces. And man, if you like tabletop games, it is a fucking blast, dude. But it is also quite complicated. Like in order to understand Warhammer rules, like, my God, that's a whole nother thing. Why don't they make a Warhammer hero shooter? I don't think that genre fits well with Warhammer. I think something bigger like a Battlefront or a Battlefront simulator would be good for Warhammer. On a scale from Monopoly to Risk, where are we landing? Oh my God. Okay. So if this is Monopoly, let's do it this way. If this is Monopoly and then this is Risk, like that's Warhammer. Like, imagine if Risk had completely individualized units. Every single army had their own specific units with different stat lines, different abilities. Each army had multiple rule sets that you could select and play the army technically differently. Like, it's crazy. Like, it's nuts, man. So, like, here, I can give you an example. Okay, let me pull up my army just to show you, or my current list that I'm playing with. I'm actually going to make a new one for tonight because I didn't love the one I used. But okay, so I call this list Big Gold. Okay, here's the list right here. It has 3 characters. All of those are individual units in the army. Okay, and any one of them, you select it, and it has its base stats. It has its ranged weapon stats. It has its melee stats. It has its abilities. It has war gear options. And it has keywords. Okay? On top of that, I have enhancements on 3 different characters. I have stratagems, which are extra bonus things that I can use at different points of the battle. Here's how many of those there are. Okay. Then I have detachment-specific rules. I have army rules. So that it's very complicated. Each army you play against will also have all of those things. And you're going to have to, like, think about what each army does, what things are you looking out for. And the other thing that's crazy is, like, there are armies. I've been playing Warhammer for 2 years. There are armies I have never played against. I have literally never played against Eldari. I have never played against the dwarf homies. Let me think. There's probably a couple other. I've never played against Astra Militarum. I've never played against orcs. You know what I mean? So, like, and I've played a pretty decent amount. It's just that it just so happens I've never lined up against orcs. And then if you play a lot in your friend group, right? So, like, I play my one buddy the most. Like, I play G-Lo the most. He has 2 armies. So he plays Sisters of Battle or Chaos Demons. Now, he can build a lot of different stuff within those armies, but by and large, I'm playing, like, the same 2 armies a lot. And, you know, same with, like, my other buddies. So in a friend group, you tend to, like, play the same armies a lot. It's usually not until you go to a tournament that you play, like, different armies. And even then, like, it kind of depends, right? Mars, welcome back to the Nerd Vengers. Appreciate you. Are there any other married with kids dudes in here who wonder themselves, how does Josh play games every night? Well, I certainly don't play them every night. I kind of wish that I did, but it's pretty simple. It's just after bedtime. just after bedtime. Get the kids in bed and have some fun. Yeah, man. Do you have to buy a new codex every time it comes out? So there's editions. We're in 10th edition right now. I got into the game towards the end of 9th edition, but I also bought 8th edition like codexes just because I wanted to learn about the lore and stuff. That side of it is a little bit of a money sink, but it also kind of depends on what army you're playing. So, like, if you play Space Marines, unfortunately, you're probably going to have to get the base level Space Marine Codex, and then you're going to have to get one specific to your own army. So, like, for the Dark Angels, I have regular Space Marine Codex, and then I have the Dark Angels Codex, right? For Custodes, I just have the Custodes. Like, that's all you need. But it kind of depends. How often does that stuff come out? I'd say once every 2 to 3 years. So it's not like crazy, but sometimes it'll feel like I think I bought 3 books in a couple of months' time because I did 2 armies, and you know, one of them is the Space Marine army, so it has like multiple things. Yeah. Josh, do you believe the Emperor could actually be one of the last old ones from the beginning of time? There was said to be an old one who survived and lives in the webway. It's possible. There are a lot of interesting things that the Emperor could be. I think one of the reasons I doubt that he's an old one is because I feel like the Chaos Gods would know that. So the Chaos Gods pretty hell-bent on destroying the Emperor and the Imperium. They really don't like that guy. And I feel like if he wasn't human, that would be something they would tell Horus. They would tell what's-his-face about Abaddon. So because that's never come up, I don't think so. I think he is just the most powerful human psyker ever to exist. And potentially a god. I don't know. Do you ever just run into anybody? Ever run into anyone to play that has the same army? Yeah. I've done mirror matches before. Yeah. Yep. Can be fun. All right, everybody. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for being here. It was a good stream. Got some cool Marvel and Star Wars news out there. Had some fun. And then we talked some Warhammer. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here. We'll be back at it again tomorrow. I'll see you at 11. As I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and a nerdy day. And I'll see you in the next video. Is everybody gone? Did everybody leave? Leave. Did they leave when we started talking about Warhammer? Did everybody leave it? Talking about Warhammer? Warhammer? Hey, don't worry, guys. We'll wear them down, okay? You know, like they're hesitant, they don't understand. They're like, no, it's not cool, but it is. They're wrong. Okay, I get it. Everybody, opinion, subjective, this, that, second, and the third. Fuck that. They're wrong. They will soon see the light. We will beat them over the head with Warhammer content until they convert. It will be done. Anyway, appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Much love. I'll see you guys soon, okay? Remember to open up your third eye and wash out your stinky butt.